as referring to the Trump versus Netanyahu, is it real? Is it fake? Story. In other words, there's been a lot of leaked information that Donald Trump is done and he's disgusted with Netanyahu. I mean, you wouldn't see that after the way he was pulling out the chair for him on 2 different trips when he was coming on over, right? But let me start off by saying this much. And some people can't grasp it, but this is the truth. Apple, you tell me if I'm lying or if I'm lying. The ruling class will only do as much as the people let them do, right? I'll say that again. The ruling class will only do as so much as what the people will let them do. In other words, they are fearful that if they go too far, there could be an uprising, right? They never want to get to that point. And everything that's happening now with the fourth industrial revolution and the Great Reset is to put themselves in a position where their power can never be challenged, right? That's what they want. They want complete track and trace. They want to get ahead of things when they can. It's a reason why there's a bastardizing of the Bolshevik Revolution, right? The Bolshevik Revolution was a class-driven revolution. Don DeBar will talk about it. It's really great. You know, where the soldiers wanted peace and they would walk around with signs that say, give us peace. The farmers wanted their own land to grow food because it was owned by the monarchy and they would never give it up. So they'd say, give us land. And the peasants were starving and they would walk around with saying, give us food. They all came together. They all marched to the Kremlin at the time, and took out Nicholas the Tsar and threw him out. I can't remember what movie it was made, but it was an old school movie. I think it was made in the 80s, but it was an amazing scene where the Tsar was told, Nicholas, they've taken the palace. They're here inside. And he walks outside, and it's just a bunch of peasants standing there with pitchforks, and they were dirt over their face, and they were poor, and there was a couple soldiers scattered within. But it was an amazing scene because it really kind of showed you that this was a class-fueled uprising. So with that being said, that's why they always bastardize the Bolshevik Revolution in my mind. I know you'll hear stories that it was co-opted, this and that. I don't believe so. I believe the ruling class understands that there's a small amount of them and there's a large amount of us. So they'll only do so much as we let them. Mm-hmm. With that being said, they will always have to lie. They will always have to cheat. They will always, their narrative management has a lot of, fibs and fakeness going involved with it. So now you sit and you tell the situation. Now the word is, a 12-year-old could read the room. When Marjorie Taylor Greene made those statements out there, and so many people, I think on Twitter, they say, let it go. Let's see where it's at. Let's see where the people really are at. If this is really moving people, you can see people were pissed off. And I think on this show before, I brought one time some post on Truth Social from Donald Trump saying, what country is the greatest threat? And a lot of people were saying Israel. And that says a lot because Truth Social is his base. It's his people. Do you have a Truth Social account?
No.
No, neither do I. Right? Most people who have that account are diehard Trump fans. So his own base was there. So you already got a sense of it. So I think this whole time it was always, let's see how far we can push it. So now we have this whole discussion out there, and people are out there. I'm not going to mention names. You knew the Maha media is going to be like, okay, and there was a bunch of these right-wingers who were like anti-Israel. That were always like, now Donald Trump has finally got it. He's not going to take crap from Israel no more. Yeah. He's disgusted with Netanyahu was the report out there. Like I said, being leaked from Israeli outlets out there, and it was like, okay, he was upset. Israel was upset that he stopped bombing Yemen without talking to Israel first. He negotiated directly with Hamas to get this soldier, release. But you have to start paying attention to policy over rhetoric. Because if you had the scale and you looked at the bad policy versus the good policy, as far as if he's really putting Netanyahu on a leash, it wouldn't hold weight. The policies that will weigh you down are what Trump has done. What has Trump done? Since this whole feud, has he said, that's it, I'm done with Netanyahu, I'm cutting aid to Israel? Has he cut aid to Israel, Matt?
No.
Okay.
No.
Has he taken back the bunker buster bombs that he gave Israel a couple weeks ago and stuff? Has he said, no, we're retracting them, we're taking those bombs back? No. Has he told Israel to stop bombing the people of Gaza, what they're doing right now? No. Has he told them to stop bombing Lebanon? No, they just bombed Lebanon 2 days ago. Has he told them to stop taking territory in Syria? No. Has he done any of that? But what he has done is he's allowed them to continue with their ethnic cleansing. They announced the other day, it was called Operation Gideon's Chariot. Now, to this date, we're talking over $12 billion in weapons and aid since Donald Trump has gotten in office. I haven't found out a proper analogy, but being happy with Donald Trump for doing this with Israel now is like being happy with your 16-year-old bully son who said he's no longer going to bully 10-year-olds anymore. He's only going to bully 13-year-olds. I mean, that's kind of the analogy. I don't have one yet. I'm looking for a better line. If anybody wants to help me out there, please do. But nothing's changed. Operation Gideon's Chariot is an operation in which the IDF is now, from Smotrich and Netanyahu, is going to go in there and seize territory in Gaza. Make sure it's cleared up. They'll start from the north. They'll go as far south as they can until where they hit a Hamas hold. And then that area back, they'll take that area. They're going to seize land in Gaza. And as we saw from the settlers, they're going to start taking back territory. Taking territory, right? I shouldn't say back because it was never theirs to begin with. So all this guff that's going on, nothing's changed. He's already given Israel everything they want. And like I said, the ruling class will go as far as the people allow them. They are smart enough to know they need a pause right now. So they'll take a pause. And, part of that territory in Gaza will now go to Israel. They'll get a big piece of that chunk of that land that they wanted. Donald Trump did everything he could to give them that. He hasn't taken anything back away from them. But at the end of the day, they'll resume. Donald Trump, not so much Donald Trump, but the United States foreign policy apparatus, from what we saw from the video you played from the get-go, they'll always try to ethnically cleanse Gaza until they get it all. They're going to do that. They might stop for now and say, all right, let's just take the territories and the gains we got now. Let's make believe that Donald Trump is mad at us because, his base is getting mad at him. The America First base doesn't want the Israel First mentality anymore. Okay? Just like Russia. They might pause right now and stuff, but I think at the end of the day, the American foreign policy apparatus will always try to balkanize and have regime change in Russia. They're not going to change, right? Donald Trump doesn't have free will, Matt. He's doing what he's told to do. And right now, this is just a kabuki theater. It's not just a kabuki theater to fool the Americans, but they also have to fool the Saudis when they're going over there like there's problems between the United States and and Israel. That helps him with negotiations in Saudi Arabia. And what's he going to do? Just sell them more weapons. It's the same old, same old. We got to look at policy over actions. This is all a crock of you-know-what, and nothing's changed. No bases have closed. No weapons have been retracted. They're just going to pause for a while and play make-believe, and the people of America will be okay with it because they're going to look at the rhetoric, not the policy.
Okay. Hard to argue with anything you said. However, I do want, at least from a vantage point of when this was announced, let's kind of walk it through here. So this was the thing, and you mentioned this earlier, Craig, about the leak. We'll call it a quote unquote leak, the Jerusalem Post, where it says Donald Trump is going to be, and it says to announce. So he's not announcing it. To announce U.S. recognizes Palestinian state. Gulf diplomatic source claims. Now, look, this obviously when a lot of people saw this, they were feeling hopeful. They were feeling like, oh, this is something. Well, we know how language works. It's actually nothing until it's something. So there's nothing here saying he is doing this. And like you said, what's coming out of his own mouth, what's coming out of his own pen of the things he's signing. So no actions happen. But I do want to play this, and this is very respectful people. We know Jeffrey Sachs, Judge Knapp. We know these guys. Yeah. They are having this discussion. This was a couple days ago, and their initial reaction. I think this is important just to have this conversation. I'm going to play this clip, and we understand that like it's going through each option and saying, well, what if this were to happen? What does that look like? So I think it's important to have this part of it. So let's hear their little exchange regarding this hopeful claim that something was going to actually happen when it hasn't.
Trump is going to call for a state of Palestine as a UN member state. That's the breakthrough.
Now, this was just released a few minutes ago, Professor Sachs, from a closed session of the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. You're probably familiar with their committee structure. Prime Minister Netanyahu, quote, this is stated in Hebrew, but we used AI to translate it. I think we will need to wean ourselves off American military aid, close quote. If he said that, what does that tell you, Professor Sachs?
Well, that would indicate that he recognizes that the U.S. is going to pursue a different foreign policy, not to support his wars. This would be wonderful news. It might suggest that he has the advance notice that President Trump is going to call for a state of Palestine as a UN member state. That's the breakthrough that we need above all. If it happens, and if this quote suggests that, of course, we're reading a lot into it, but if it suggests that, that is phenomenal news. It's interesting, by the way, we should understand how many foreign policy initiatives President Trump is engaged in just this moment that look positive right now. And this is astounding. First is Ukraine. I think he is maneuvering to get that war ended, and he's doing it very successfully. With the U.S.-China today, the agreement to roll back the tariffs that went to the stratosphere a few weeks ago, this is very good news. With the president intervening in the India-Pakistan battle of the last few days to bring together a ceasefire, with the president overriding Waltz apparently, and certainly Netanyahu, to say, no, we're not going to have wars with Iran. All of these are peace-seeking initiatives. It's amazing. And if it's true, President Trump will make history. It's very close. He needs to understand and really needs to see that if he says two-state solution, no nonsense, this is the real thing, all his other goals will be achievable. And that is a remarkable, remarkable fact.
So everything that Jeffrey Sachs just listed are things that we've covered, obviously, on our shows. They're all in motion. What's happening with Ukraine, what's happening with China, all these things. He's listing a list of things that are hopeful problems to be solved, where Trump could define his legacy as the greatest, whatever. That's kind of what he was suggesting there. But this one thing would have to happen. So this announcement gets made. This is their initial reaction. As we know, this is a couple days have passed. There has been nothing. You've given a very accurate depiction, Craig, of what you're seeing, which is absolutely nothing. You probably predicted this 2 days ago that nothing was going to happen. Still nothing has happened. I would be curious to hear their follow-up, both of their follow-ups to their conversation they had here. But my question to you then is, why wouldn't, if those things, if that's true, if in a hypothetical world, if Trump were to declare Palestinian state, in that hypothetical timeline, is Jeffrey Sachs correct in saying that these other things could happen and it could secure his legacy? And this would definitely, somebody with an ego like his could boost his ego to a point of, look at me, I'm the greatest president of all time. Why wouldn't he even have that on the table? Not that he could get that done, but is it something that you would see him wanting to do? So that's my question, is does that timeline exist in some weird alternate dimension?
Well, once again, I think that, with all due respect to Jeffrey Sachs, I think he's amazing. I think he's a great guy. I love where he's at, but he's also late to the party when it comes to certain things. The whole COVID situation, you know what I'm saying? So many people took so much stock in what Jeffrey had to say, and there were a lot of us who were saying the same exact thing almost 3 years previous. Yeah. So, with all due respect to Jeffrey Sachs, I think Jeffrey Sachs also has to take into account, because he did one of the big mistakes. He said, what if this does happen? I remember Rachel Maddow saying, if the Russians took control of the grid, the energy grid in the United States. So I've heard that if before, and I don't like to live in those if worlds. I want to see action. If Donald Trump was serious about his disdain or disgust for what Bibi Netanyahu and in the Zionist nation were doing, he would take some serious policy actions right away, including you're not going to get a dime, not a single dime of foreign aid from the United States anymore until you have a complete and total ceasefire right now and you withdraw your troops. That's not happening. Like I said, the operation, I have to look at it all the time, Gideon's Chariot, is a plan that was just enacted by Smotrich in which the IDF is going to take control of Gaza. They're going into Gaza to ethnically cleanse it. So I still think that, going back to my original statement when I started this off, the ruling class will only go as far as the people allow them to. They can read the room. They understand. Even Trump fans now are saying, hey, man, this is getting out of hand with Israel. They're doing too much. Why are we Israel's bitch? Why do we have to constantly do it? Even Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying some stuff now. Like, enough is enough. They can read that room. So what I think they're going to do is just have pauses, And as we're saying this stuff, you just showed a video of what Israel's doing today as far as aid is going in and they're snipering people. So the actions haven't changed. The plan is still going forward. Everybody's caught up once again in rhetoric, not policy. So if we really want to see some things being taken place, we want to see Trump, and I still don't get it. Like, he's given them everything they wanted, $12 billion in aid since he started, in missiles. Like we talked about, the bunker busting bombs that even Biden wouldn't even give Israel. He gave it to him. You know what I'm saying? And he's turned a naked eye to what's going on in the West Bank. And guess what? That's still going on. So every day when we see the news out of Israel, nothing's stopped. Nothing's going back. It's still moving forward. And I won't believe any of that stuff that Donald Trump says until he actually pulls the trigger on these things. And even if he did pull the trigger, like I said, it's just going to be a pause. United States will always back Israel in their ethnic cleansing project until they get rid of all the Palestinians, right? You don't see too many Native Americans running around the United States nowadays. Indians, of whatever you want to call them, it's up to you, right? I mean, George Carlin had a whole shtick about it, but they're not here anymore. We ethnically cleansed them. So they're doing the same thing over there. It's a colonization project, and the United States is 100% behind it. Like I said, you got to look, and this is something that Whitney Webb talks about, and she talks about it in her book. She talks about what's going on. Got to look at bottom baseline facts, hard facts, policy. Israel will no longer get weapons from the United States until they stop their ethnic cleansing colony project. Gaza will be recognized as a state. And if it's recognized as the state this time, it's going to be recognized as a state with about half its population than when this whole thing started after October 7th. And that's something we have to remember. So we'll just be another pause. They had it in 2014. They took a time out. Now they did it again. So until there's some hardline, policy written, and that's the next thing you're going to see. Donald Trump is now fighting the Congress over his positions on Israel, because the Congress, which is, pretty much these people shouldn't be in the House of Representatives. They should be in the Knesset, right? Because that's where they're getting their money from and their policy from. That's going to be the next argument. But it's always cloak and dagger. It's always kind of pulling the wool over the heads. Americans need to look at policy, and that's the bottom line. And I know that's a lot of homework and that's hard, but until we do that, we'll see that all this nonsense, this fuzzy buzzy that's going in front of us is just that, to keep us back, to make us go back to okay. That's it.
Yeah. Well, this isn't going to make it any easier to challenge anything you just said, Pasta, but to add fuel to the fire, this is the a little photo op that's circling around right now. Trump standing here between two, as we would say, this Al-Qaeda leader who's now Syrian president, and he's got this handshake going on here, and these are photo ops. These obviously aren't, like, he actually wants to be seen. He's very excited about having this moment. But we remember this. This was the award to stop this terrorist. And who would have thought that, like, fast forward to 2025, that this guy would be shaking hands with our U.S. president. $10 million reward for that. So there's a lot of people furious about this, but I think that let's look at some of the takes here. I think that when we understand that U.S. funded Al Qaeda, then it's not actually a big deal. But Syrian Girl says, yeah, no, Trump just shook hands with the founder of Al Qaeda in Syria. Al Qaeda just shook hands with Trump, who recognized the Golan as Israeli land and occupies Syria. We told you for decades Al Qaeda equals Al CIA. All traitors must be brought to justice. And when she says traitors, I mean everyone's a traitor, I guess, from everybody in a position of military power since 9/11 has been quote unquote traitor. So I don't know if it does anything different than what we've already been doing all these years, but it makes sense that obviously the thing we're funding, we're now shaking hands. And this is Richard Medhurst kind of nails it here. He says, I see nothing weird about Trump meeting with Jolani, no different from a boss meeting their employee. Al Qaeda and ISIS are creations of the U.S. and Israel, whether indirectly or otherwise. I would bet a pretty penny that Jolani, Baghdadi, was recruited at Camp Buka. Yeah. And then Aramate's take is, and I'm going to play this clip now, and I'm going to pass it back to you. But there's suppressed news. So look below here. It says, Justin, U.S. President Trump speaking about Syria's president, and he's calling him a young, attractive, tough guy. He's literally doing this, guys. You got to see this. This is pretty insane. Okay.
He chops people's heads off. He's very tough.
Yeah. And then Aramate's saying above that, Trump jails foreign students for writing op-eds and attending protests while praising a former leader of ISIS and Al Qaeda as a young, attractive guy with a very strong past. Let me grab the clip if you guys haven't seen it. It's very Trumpian, but man, it kind of this one stings extra hard actually when we see it. Hold on, here we go.
President.
Right. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass, very strong pass fighter.
Is that wordy?
But he's got a real shot at pulling it together.
And meanwhile,
wow, what did he say? I want to hear the rest of what he said.
That he's got a real shot. Well, it was on the tweet. Hold on, I'll grab it. He says a real shot at holding it together. Does that sound like that's what he said? You want to hear it again? Let's hear it again.
Yeah.
President.
Right. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass, very strong pass fighter.
Is that wordy?
But he's got a real shot at pulling it together.
He's got a strong past. That part is that's insane to say strong past. And like Aramante nails it. Like, so he's arresting people, calling out BS, but this guy just has a strong past.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just infuriating. This just makes your argument that much stronger, Craig. It's hard to argue anything you said before this.
Well, the way the Maha media is spinning this, by the way, is really upsetting. I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I forgot because I wanted to get one more in there. This is a quickie that he says about Hamas, which he's doing all at the same time. This is all happening.
I want to stay on the Syrian leader real quick, though, but then we can. All right, let's stay let's stay there because the way it's being portrayed by the MAGA media is that this must really piss off Israel that he's talking to this guy and whatnot. Once again, it's like and I seen people out there, and the guy who put that up, I was on his show, and him putting up there, I'm like, these guys just know nothing about foreign policy. They're so late to the game. Like, once again, Israel has held more territory in Syria than they've ever held. They're like 20 kilometers away from the capital, for crying out loud. They got everything they want. This doesn't piss off Netanyahu that he went and met this head chopper. And let me just say this much. During the Trump administration, he helped, Donald Trump aided into really making the people under the presidency of what's our homeboy's name that was there for so long, Assad, suffer. Vanessa Beeley said to me, it's like, I don't think that the sanctions are the worst thing put on Syria right now, which is really hurting them. It's the Trump administration stealing their goods and then selling it off to Israel and giving it to Israel. You know what I'm saying? He helped with the situation that led to the fall of the Assad regime. And you're saying this is a tough guy, big pass, whatnot. This guy was killing Christians and Alawites on the outskirts not too long ago. You know what I'm saying? Donald Trump had a part to play in this all the time because, once again, he did exactly what Israel wanted them to do. But the people are trying to spin this as if Donald Trump going to meet this way is a way of him poking his fingers in the eye of Netanyahu. Right now, today, the Israeli Greater Project has grown under Donald Trump. They're stronger than ever. They're armed to the T. They're on their way to ethnically cleansing at least 75% of Gaza. So if the Gazans that do remain, if they have the pause right now and hold on, like I said, the population, yeah, it was started by Joe Biden and it was finished by Donald Trump. I mean, it's a continuation. This is more of the same of what's going on. But a lot of this can be pulled off because the American voter or the American citizen is so naive to what's really going on.
Yeah, they are. But more
It is a
waking
psyop.
up.
It's a way of just hoodwinking the people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you hear Trump say things like this, still, like after we already have all the information about what happened on October 7th, they've admitted what they did. The IDF has admitted what they did on October 7th, using the Hannibal Directive, killing their own people, all the beheaded babe, all that stuff. Everybody knows it was BS. Everybody knows it now. If you didn't know before, okay, you were fooled, but you know now. So if you're saying it now, you're lying. Trump just wants to keep saying it. And so this, I don't know if you saw this clip. This is, again, it's just doing the thing, the propaganda for Israel, and to give Zionists more talking points to continue as they go and harass and bully and try and intimidate Palestinian protesters as the Congress tries to put laws against them protesting. So this language is infuriating. Here we go.
Safety and dignity of the Palestinian people, but that cannot happen as long as Gaza's leaders take delight in raping, torturing, and murdering innocent people. Can't have it. I greatly appreciate.
So he's still going along with the line,
Yeah.
the same,
There's no evidence of Hamas raping and anyone in Israel. They don't rape. That's not what October 7th was. They just made it up. The only people that do the raping is the IDF, which they've admitted to. We have actual evidence of. Mm-hmm. So that he's still saying this now is definitely as same with Bernie doing his little talking points where people want to pretend that he's for humanitarian rights because he says the thing, oh, it's so horrible what's going on. He's doing a Bernie, but he just has a little more power than Bernie because he's actually sitting in the chair of the presidency. But it's the same thing, right? It's the base thinks it's he's saying the right thing. No, he's doing the talking points.
It's the babies and incubator story all over again.
Yeah, there you go. So I'll just leave it with this, Craig. Everything you're saying, I can't argue anything you're saying. It's a dark take that is most grounded in reality than anybody else. Any of the other MAGAs that think that this is a big change. Jeffrey Sachs, you're right. It was overly optimistic. Him saying that it was all
he
what
said
it
if.
would be. What
Jeffrey
if.
Sachs said if.
What if?
Come on, Jeffrey Sachs.
If it's a hypothetical, like I said, it's an alternate timeline that we're not living in, and we shouldn't be wasting time on that so much. However, I will leave it with one little silver lining. I do think that since October 7th, it's a little different than the pause you mentioned in 2014. There were even less people aware of what was going on in 2014. More people are aware, and I do believe that some of these mainstream outlets are kind of forced to have to change their language a little bit, and we're seeing some of that language change. I'm just going to mention them. We don't have to go through them because I know we've kind of stayed on this a while, but if you guys go check out some of these news outlets. They've slightly modified their language, just like on the Ukraine issue. You've seen some of the modification where like the Guardian, the Independent, the Economist, the Financial Times. These are media outlets where they never would have even mentioned that Israel was doing anything that we should be concerned about ever. Now they kind of have to. And I think that's important, Craig. It's something, it's a silver lining, if you would, or some would say it's breadcrumbs. But to me, those breadcrumbs at least are worth that the public has awareness now they did not have before. And at some point they have to go, well, maybe Israel isn't the thing we thought they were, that they had no red line policy, RFK, the blank check to Netanyahu. I think we've kind of moved a little bit away from that. And that could be small little breadcrumb silver lining. I just wanted to throw that out.
It only took the death of 70,000 freaking Palestinians, mostly women and children, to get there. But I guess, sorry, Matt. 2014, there was like I don't remember. It was like less than 10,000 people killed, I think. I'm not sure. But we're talking right now 60,000 people, and that's only the people that they buried, right? So many people are stuck under the rubble that this could be close to 200,000. I mean, like I said, Gaza is just decimated, and of course, they have to recognize it because the killing is that much more. And it's really a shame. And none of that is stopping today, and none of that's stopping tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to still go on.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciated the conversation on this, man. I you know what? The dark truth reality is something we need. So thanks for being totally raw and real about it, because I know that it's so easy to go into this hopeful place. Something's going to happen, but we have to keep it real. And I appreciate you doing that for us here on the Homeless Left.
They think that people think I'm doing that just to hate or own Donald Trump. That's not the case. I wish I was wrong on these situations. I really was. When I was doing all my election investigating and I was coming to conclusions that things were so wrong, I was hoping that I was wrong, right? Yeah. I really did, because, if I was wrong, that means there was some form of transparency and legitimacy into what was going on. But as I did my investigation, I found out the whole thing was just a farce. And as we do these situations right now, I really wish Donald Trump was pissed off at Netanyahu, but there would be certain actions that would really actually prove that he was pissed off and done with the Israeli state, the Zionist entity, if that were the case. It's not the case. Everything is going along as planned for the Zionist nation and their ethnic cleansing project in Gaza. And you showed it today on the day of the anniversary of the Nakba, over 100 people killed. So nothing has changed. And I think people need to call that out. They got to look at policy over rhetoric. And until they do that, they're going to continue to get duped.
Yeah. Well said, Craig. Yeah. So are you having to get out now, or you want?
Yeah, I got to go right now because.
Okay. I wanted to. Yeah. No, dude. I appreciate you coming in and doing this. These are the most. You always say this, and you're 100% right. This is the most censored news. This is the most important news. So we have to cover it. We have to never stop talking about Palestine, never stop talking about Gaza, never stop talking about the Israel-U.S. war machine, American imperialism. It's the most important thing of our entire lives, and especially now. Now. So,
it is.
Yeah.
By far. And great job by antiwar.com to do some great reporting on that, because every single day that goes on, that's just going to prove that what Donald Trump is saying is nothing more than hot air. Remember, he didn't just have to convince the American people about what was going on, that he's pissed off at Netanyahu. That also helped him with the Saudis. You know what I'm saying? So he was creating leverage all over the place. And the ruling class, they have control of the media. They're just going to control the narrative the way they want to. So they can say all these things, but until the actions follow the words, it's just hot air. And that's all it is.